Hey everybody, this is Javier Balderramos. This is Planet Texas. I have Joe Galli here. You may know Joe Galli as the head commentator for the NWA, and the NWA is the National Wrestling Alliance. He's also a Texas native, so that you can understand. Not just that, is the COO of National Wrestling, as well as the head commentator, and a dedicated husband and father.
I try.
And
You know,
thank
I
you so much.
think I think I'm not a natural Texan in the same way that, neither was Jim Bowie or Travis or most of the guys who died at the Alamo. They all came from somewhere else. Which is always like the story of Texas, is people have to ride in and then they rise, but then they become like intertwined with the story of Texas, even though they weren't actually born here, which I think is interesting. It's almost the mythos of the American dream, but even on a smaller scale, just here in Texas. So I'm originally from Los Angeles, and I moved here. Oh gosh, must have been 7 years ago at this point, where I moved here for my job in news for WOII News 4 San Antonio and Fox 29. Um, but yeah, but now it's definitely my home. I've got roots here. I've got the house here. I got the wife, the kid. I don't see me living in any other city, any other, at least not in the short or long term, really. It's great, and you see that so much with so many people moving to the state, having roots in the state, and, being successful in the state as well. Like, and your dollar goes a lot further here than it does in a lot of other places too. That's one of the reasons I love living here.
So, what actually inspired you to go from journalism to professional wrestling commentary?
Well, it's interesting because actually it's they happen simultaneously. I was going to California State University, Northridge. People in the SoCal area just call it CSUN, for college, and I was originally going in with like a film study, to try to be like a screenwriter or something. I really didn't know, but the course was so aggressive because it's Southern California, and if you're gonna do a course on film, then it's gonna take a long time, and I couldn't do it and work full time in order to do it. So I transitioned over to journalism, and at the same time, I had a good friend, who's still my best friend, Brandon Taylor, who currently works for New Japan Pro Wrestling. And he saw an ad in a paper. It shows how old we are at that point, too. It really dates you when you start saying you're on a physical paper. And the paper was a 2-for-1 coupon for this new wrestling school. And he's like, I want to go. You want to go with me? And I was like, sure. And I just kind of thought like it would be, something fun to do on a, Saturday night or whatever it was. But as soon as I got there and started bumping around and messing around that ring, it's like I was just hooked, I don't know exactly what bump or whatever just hooked me to it, but I just started training and I started working in pro wrestling at the same time I was, studying journalism. And so I did that throughout my college. And, I was, as Jim Cornette would say, working those outlaw indie mud shows. And, and I started doing that. And then at the same time, I just, I had an opportunity to be a morning reporter for the, I believe, yeah, NBC affiliate in Toledo, Ohio. And look at these call letters. Listen to this. WNWO. Come on. NWO was like a calling. So like I moved over there and I started doing some morning reporting, and wrestling took a back seat, and eventually I transitioned on to the broadcast side. I moved back to Southern California a number of years later, and there was another, just, it's one of those things you just got to strike any opportunity that comes your way, especially in pro wrestling. You can't take anything for granted, or think there'll be a next time. If something's happening, you got to like go for it. And I just had really good timing, and it worked out, and I got to start doing commentary for Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, with Dave Marquez. And that's eventually where I met, Billy Corgan and his partner, and Nick Aldis and Tim Storm. Actually, it was Tim Storm who was the champ at the time, and then that belt transitioned over to Nick Aldis for the 1,000 days that he had it. So, that's sort of the long and the short of how I was able to go from, it wasn't making a transition from one to the other. I just did both of them simultaneously. And now at this point, I was able to step away from the broadcast journalism side and focus full time with the NWA, which has really been a blessing.
So, how was that conversation when you were telling your coworkers and family, like, hey, I'm going to become a commentator for wrestling.
Well, it's I've done it for so long, and like originally, I was when I got sort of the opportunity to do it in Southern California, I was living in Palm Springs and working as a reporter for KESQ, the Desert's News Leader, Channel 3. And I was driving to Port Hueneme, which is in Ventura County, to do championship wrestling from Hollywood. And so, like, that was a 4 hour drive every other weekend, going there. And I'm making, $50, $75, something like that. Actually, I was probably making more than a lot of the guys that were taking the bumps too. But, there was a lot of sacrifice that kind of came with it. At your, you're going and covering this much distance and putting in this much time, and but all of that, it's built up to this point to where, I'm working full time in the sport of professional wrestling. I'm helping run, the most historic, longest running brand in the sport of professional wrestling now. And we're expanding and things are going really, really well. And so everything's kind of fallen into place, but none of that happens without taking the initial sacrifice of just going and doing it. And sometimes doing it for no money, and sometimes doing it when you lose money. Like that's also a thing too. So it's one of those things. I think the lesson that I want to, impart on my daughter, and any other future children I may have, is you have to go out and sometimes put if you're passionate about something, you got to just put your best foot forward and work hard, get experience, and something will come of it. It doesn't have to be immediate. You're not going to make, $1 million your first year doing whatever it is that you want to do. If you do great, it's likely that you won't. But find something you're passionate with and stick with it and grind and work hard and try to learn from people. And eventually it pays off. And it took me a long time to get to this position. I started in professional wrestling in 2011 and it's 2024 now, almost 2025. And so, it takes a long time to build that foundation that you can really expand upon. And so, yeah, so, and my family's been always been supportive of me. It's hard for them. Like there wasn't anybody in my family that was in television of any type, really. And, my dad was a general contractor. My mother worked for OPI nail products for a long time. And so, like, it was, I'm sure they didn't anticipate that, following my collegiate years, I would move to Toledo, Ohio for a few years to be a reporter. So they've always been supportive of me, whatever it is I'm doing. And I'm really grateful for that. And now, I've got these roots here in San Antonio. My mother moved to a town called Seguin. Well, obviously, Planet Texas, everyone's going to know where Seguin is. But if you're watching from other places, it's outside San Antonio. And, so it's kind of allowed everything's kind of really fallen into place here. And, people say like, "Hey, Joe, how you doing?" I always say, "Living the dream." It's kind of like my go-to response to that, but it's true too. I like the fact that it's true. I'm not just saying, "Yeah, I'm fine." No, it's the truth. I worked so hard to get to this point and it's paying off so well. And my success is the NWA success and vice versa. And I couldn't be happier.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Sounds you get to do what you want to do every day. So waking up with a smile always happens.
Yeah. It's a lot of people don't get that. And it does, and not just talking about people in television or pro wrestling. There's a lot of people out there that, they have to just do the grind and support themselves and support their families, and there's a big sacrifice with that. So to be able to do what you love and be able to support the family that you have, um, that's really the American dream. I don't see how it gets much better than that, to be honest with you. Having millions of dollars, I guess maybe, but I'll go play the lotto when I'm done with this interview, and maybe I'll get lucky.
Would you really would that really make you happy if were a multi-millionaire?
You hear all those stories where it really just doesn't, like it always it somehow it backfires. You win $10 million, and then all of a sudden family members start coming out of the woodwork and they want a piece of this, and it ends up ruining relationships. I think they made reality shows about it too. So who knows? Who knows? I know, I feel like, the second I'm done with this interview, I'm going to open the door, go in my living room, and there's going to be my 4-month-old daughter, and that's like, well, what if you can't ask for a better jackpot?
Oh no, no, you hit the lottery, especially when you could just open the door and your family's sitting there.
Yeah.
So as the head commentator of the NWA, everybody has their own certain styles. What is your style for commentary?
I think I'm kind of a hybrid style. There's a lot of guys out there that try to model themselves after like a specific person. Um, and I kind of dip into a lot of stuff that's might be, I'm 37 years old, I think. Yeah, 37. So I grew up with JR, I grew up with Michael Cole, I grew up with, the early days of SmackDown and Raw and Jerry the King Lawler. But as I got older, I was able to kind of get exposed, and this is the great thing that happens with the internet, is you start to get exposed to, Gordon Soley and, a lot of that older generation of stuff. And so I kind of like go into, this hybrid of where I try to keep it as, classical broadcast. Like if I happen to be there in a smoking jacket, smoking a cigarette, drinking a scotch, you would think that it fits in that time period and the way that I'm acting with it. But you also have to bring it up to the new level of excitement that has to match the level of what's happening in the ring. So you have to kind of hybridize it, or at least I do, and there are different ways to go about it and be a broadcaster. I think anybody who watches any sport, especially if you're watching something where like you've got multiple, football games on a Sunday, for example, and you're gonna see that, Joe Buck has his own sort of style. And then when you go to the other channels and start listening to the other football commentators that are there, there's a uniformity in the story that you're trying to tell, but there also is going to be your own flair that you're going to put on things. And you have little catchphrases that might kind of pop up. I've never really had a good catchphrase. I wish it did. JR had so many good ones with slobber knocker and,
Those
stomping a mud hole and whipping like a rented mule. And of course, Jim Cornette's always had, he was so quick. And I got to work with him briefly, in the early years of NWA Powerrr. And so just being able to learn from him and learn from a lot of the other, my broadcast partners that I've had so many over the years. I feel like everyone that I've worked with, I've learned something new from. And so it's just developed into, the Joe Galli style. And there are some times like I will see people post, a clip that's semi-viral of something that happened. It's happening a lot in our women's division. A lot of their clips are going viral on X and Instagram and stuff. And I'll look at the comments and be like, I heard Joe Galli. I definitely know whose that is. And that's flattering to me that my voice is so identifiable that they could pick that out in that moment.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of people, a lot of professional wrestlers and professional women that are actually on the NWA that people don't even know. Like Tom Latimer. Tom Latimer was used to be on the TNA. He used to be on the WWE. Like he's been around.
Yeah, I think
And
we
he,
have a really diverse roster, and I think we've got some veterans like Tom Latimer, who is our NWA World Heavyweight Champion, who you could see in action coming up on NWA Shockwave January 11th. Get your tickets now at nwaliveevents.com. And see, that's another reason I'm good at my job. I can always get a plug in. You got to just kind of get the plugs in for everything. But also, I think what's so exciting about the NWA is our younger athletes that we have. We have a really good group of young talent that they're so young that they really haven't had the opportunity to go to any other places like TNA or WWE or AEW, any of those sort of stuff. And
that's how
we've been able to get them at this ground level and develop them into the stars that they are today. And that includes like our NWA World Women's Champion, Kenzie Page, her sister Kylie Page, Carson Drake, who's our current NWA television champion, Big Strong Mims, who's our national heavyweight champion. So like we've got this core group of like young guys and girls that are so good, and there's so much raw talent that's there. And in the NWA, we're able to harness that talent and then focus it in a way that creates memorable characters uh, for people to enjoy on NWA Powerrr, which at this point is still airs Tuesdays. And if you're in Texas at 5:05 Central on the NWA account on X. So just follow at NWA on X and you'll see those posts that happen every Tuesday at 5:05 to watch NWA Powerrr, which is such a fun, you know, program that we put together, and we're going a lot of different places. So every season sort of has a different flavor. Everything looks a little bit different. We try to spice things up and make things different. And so if you're, interested in, catching some pro wrestling that's a little different than maybe some of your fans that are watching traditional stuff on cable or whatever, come check us out every Tuesday. And there's we have a huge YouTube presence as well where we put matches up there, and I think people can really enjoy it. And then also keep in mind that a lot of those matches that they're seeing, those were filmed right here in Texas in Forney, which is just outside Dallas, and we've got an amazing uh, facility there called the OC Theater, which is a part of the Forney ISD School District. And yeah, they love having us there. It looks great. I think they unintentionally made quite possibly the best modern professional wrestling arena without knowing it. I think that they decided they wanted to build something that was like theater in the round, but it fits so perfectly with pro wrestling. And so that's why we're going there regularly. And then our newest territory is NWA Texas TSW, and they run there regularly as well. So it's a really great venue. It's a really great place for anybody, who's interested in seeing some live pro wrestling, or even seeing just how, television's put together. Like, just you want to be a part of a studio audience. It's also really interesting for a lot of people to kind of just see how it's all put together.
Yeah, you're talking about the Dog Pound Championship in San
Oh yeah,
Antonio.
Dog Pound too. Dog Pound down here in San Antonio, run by Rodney Mack and Jazz. And you talk about, like, we really try to leverage our veterans in, the NWA, and that certainly includes Jazz in our women's division. Our women's division in the NWA, and I'm biased and I know it, but I also think this is a fact, is the best women's division in the sport. And a big reason for that is Jazz and her ability to coach these girls and to have them go beyond what they think that they can even do themselves. And that's what an amazing coach does. That's what you're really striving to have. And Rodney, he's done a great job cultivating a lot of the young talent that are here in South Texas that have had opportunities on NWA Power. Guys like Soda Pop, who's one of our high flying junior heavyweights that just the kids love the guy. I mean, your name's Soda Pop, everyone loves you. So, but
Yeah,
he's a great worker, and a lot of that has to do with the coaching that happens with Jazz and Rodney. And so, having these core groups of people, whether they're young talent with raw potential, or veterans that have been around the block and know exactly what needs to get done to get people over, it creates this mix and it creates this family, which on its surface looks probably pretty bizarre, but we are able to take all of those components and put them together to put on incredible live performances for the fans that are, that will go to the OC Theater on January 11th and buy a ticket and watch it in person, or anybody who's watching around the world watching NWA Power at home.
of course, of course. So do you have any memorable moments in the NWA? Like I have one or two of my favorite moments. I don't know if you
Okay, let's see. Maybe they line up. What are yours?
Shoes of a Champion.
Shoes of a
Uh,
champion. Yeah.
remember that? And I also remember that I also watched this video twice with Black G's.
Hmm.
When he had his cancer, and then
Yeah.
he talked about the next day he had a shooting when he got out of the
Yeah.
hospital. Yeah, that was very hard to watch, but it was very good. Like it's when reality hits you and it comes out. Like it actually reminds me of when John Cena looked at that child and talked about fighting cancer and all that others. It had a lot to go on it.
Yeah, and I think that that's another thing that we try to capitalize in the NWA is the realism that you see, and we can incorporate things that are happening in people's personal lives. And Jesus' story, 100%, authentic in the fact that he's beat cancer and then unfortunately was a victim of a attempted carjacking, got shot, recovered, and now he's back and he's managing our NWA National Heavyweight Champion. And I think that that shows the toughness and the resilience of the people that we have, but also in the same way that we want to tell relatable stories to people. It's not just we want to go out there, have two guys do a bunch of spots, clap, 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 fight forever, whatever. We want to develop stories and characters that people can believe in, they can love, they can hate. There has to be an emotional component. It's like when you go into making television or particularly pro wrestling, the thought isn't what's the story you want to tell at the end of the day. It's how do you want to make people feel, is I feel is the bigger thing. And that's harder to do. It's easy to tell a story, you could tell an easy story of like the itsy bitsy spider. It's just a story about a spider crawling on a water spout. and you could tell that story, but if you start trying to find ways to get an emotional response out of people, that's what you're going for. And that's the key to good storytelling, and that's the key to good professional wrestling.
And then also I have to say, like, I was kind of sad when we lost the brick house to AEW.
Well, she ain't dead.
Well, no, but I mean,
Actually,
like,
and I had an opportunity, Kaylee, as I get to call her now. I used to just call her Camille because I never wanted to mess up on commentary. So, but and I guess still Camille because she's Camille over there in AEW. She's tremendous talent. She's married to Tom Latimer, our world heavyweight champion. I love them to death as a couple. I think they're the most adorable couple together, to be honest with you. Definitely the strongest. But you don't want to mess with that couple right there.
longest women's
Uh,
champion.
um, yeah, and look, Camille helped set a standard for our women's division, being a champion for 900 plus days and being this force out there and having, every year we'd talk to people around this time, like, hey, what do you think the match of the year is? And when Camille was with us, she was always in that conversation.
Yeah.
So, but, with the women's division that we have today, with Kenzie Page being our world champion, the It Girls as a tag team, Caribbean Flow is another one of our women's tag teams, Big Mama, who's our NWA World Women's Television Champion. You know, we have such a solid women's division, and I think that really shine. And then I'd be remiss to talk about Natalia Markova, who's just the brightest star. I think. I mean, who's probably the center of most of the viral videos that are going out now, and also one of the toughest people, man or woman. Nobody's tougher than Markova, and so to have all of those people, all of those women working so hard to continue on with what we're doing and to present themselves as the best in the sport is one of the reasons why I believe the NWA is so successful.
Yeah, because I actually do regularly watch the NWA Power, and then I've actually gone down to San Antonio to Pound Town, even though or Dogtown, excuse me. And then I met Rodney, but I don't think he realized that we actually like met because he was like in the middle of it. They're usually busy anyways.
Oh yeah. And it's especially if you're going to one of the shows that's happening here at Big's Burger Joint is where they run a lot of their shows out of. Great, relationship with them as well. And I actually think it's a really cool venue to go and watch pro wrestling because it's intimate enough where there's 300 people in there packed into kind of a tight room, but you're attached to a great restaurant with a full bar and delicious cheeseburgers. By the way,
Oh yeah,
don't
of
get the
course.
double cheeseburger. It's too big. I couldn't finish it. It's like I'll get a double. I'm starving, and like these things are massive, like here Texas-sized burgers there.
It's like
And so you get to eat good and watch good wrestling.
so I wanted to ask you about your COO, the Chief Operating Officer. How did that come about?
Another thing of where I think a lot of loyalty, kind of comes into it, where, you know, I've been part of the brand since essentially almost the very beginning of the Lightning One era with Billy, and um, I think me working so hard and, pre-pandemic, I was sort of like pseudo. I had like a part-time sort of in the office. I would just, that's the wrestling phrase. You're in the office. So, I, just was doing that. And then at a certain point, I actually, that job had to get transferred to Kyle Davis. And he ended up, doing operations, through the pandemic because he had lost his job because, so many people got laid off at that time, doing whatever it is they were doing. And now we're together, both running operations in there. So I think it's just having a skill set and just trying to deliver what the fans want and what Billy wants, and for us to just continue on to grow in the world of pro wrestling and also as a footprint for broadcast television as well. So I think it's another thing where it's you work so hard and you're just really loyal and eventually things pay off is really that's the secret to that sauce.
And then how do you manage to balance your professional life as well as being a husband and a father? Like what is that about when you tell them, hey, I gotta go, I gotta be gone. I love you, I miss you, and I'll see you.
Well, it ain't. it ain't easy, especially when you've got the littlest of little ones. So like my recent trips that I've had to go, and my Ivy, my daughter's only 4 months old. So it's definitely a challenge, and I'm sure it'll be a challenge going forward. But the other thing that's great is um I made it a habit to talk to all of the veterans that are in the NWA that had kids. And because they'd all have gone through it, and a good example of that was Trevor Murdoch. He, at his time, not just now where he's got kids that are, graduating high school, but, he was in WWE as, tag team champion. He's got a wife and young kids at home. And I was like, so how do you do it? How did you do it and not get a divorce? It's really the thing. It's like, I wanted to go and find people that had success in it and get all that advice from them. And they told me the secrets of their success that was there. And you just have to be dedicated. You have to be there. You have to pick up the slack even more so when you're home, like when we wake up at night to feed Ivy, I wake up twice, and I take that extra shift there because when I'm not home, she has to do all the shifts. So you have to try to find that balance, which means doing more, even more when you're home. And, just trying to show that support as much as possible. And really, it's kind of like in the same thing I was saying before about, I've never said no to like an opportunity. You can't say no when it's like you're trying to help out and raise the child. So you always got to be the one to volunteer to do whatever those tasks are. And that, happy wife, happy life, and I'm grateful because um, my wife's so supportive of, what I'm doing. And if she wasn't, there's no way it would work. It just wouldn't work at all. So you have to have that level of support for both.
So, what do you think is the future of professional wrestling within the NWA? What does the
Well,
future hold for the NWA?
well, look, I think we're gonna have some really big announcements coming after the first of the year. Obviously, we're already, as we record this, it's already the holiday season. But we've got a lot of conversations with people and certain broadcast companies and stuff where NWA Power could move off of X and onto something else. We're having a lot of conversations with different venues in different parts of the country where we're going to bring the NWA for the first time in a long time, which could be West Coast, it could be international, it could be in the Northeast again. We had enormous success with NWA 76 in Philadelphia at the 2300 Arena. So we're going to be expanding as far as not only the locations that we're going to be doing shows, but also expanding our reach as far as broadcast of where power is going to go. And we've got different strategies to kind of, you have to adapt to the world that you're in. And so there's a lot of people out there that are probably fans of professional wrestling, and maybe they never watch it on TV and it just kind of pops up when they're scrolling through TikTok or scrolling through Instagram. So you have to be able to engage those fans as well. So it's cracking that code of being able to find this balance where you have a traditional television wrestling broadcast, but also have it exist in 2025, that time frame and what's happening in the world and how people are, engaging with media and how they show their fandom and how they show their support. So we've got a lot of good things. I wish I could talk about more. It's kind of a lot of stuff we're waiting to make some big announcements with that like pen to paper, it's already done. We're just waiting for to whatever the right moment is for us to tell people and to launch certain things. So just continue to follow us on social media, and as soon as we have some announcements to make, as far as wherever we're going to be, and as far as live shows, and I honestly love the fact that we're on X right now because there was such a long time when we had our CW deal, where NWA Power was on the CW app, that locked out everybody outside of the United States. It was a geolocated app. So if you were in the United States, that's the only way you could watch it. And for our fans that are in England and Germany and Japan, they messaged us religiously, like, why can't we watch Power anymore? Like, we want to see it. And now that we're on X, anywhere in the world, X is available. So it's giving our international fans, something that was missing for the almost a year that we were on the CW app. So I really like being there just in the fact that everybody could see it and it's free. and most people have an X account, and if you don't, it's easy to make one, if you want to watch the product.
Well, I remember when y'all were on YouTube
Yeah.
before y'all made the deal with the CW, and then that really did kind of like mess it up a little bit. I can tell you
I,
that.
it added challenges. That there definitely was advantages to it. I think if we were never on the CW, we wouldn't have been in a position to make the reality show, Billy Corgan's Adventures in Carneyland, which is still available on the CW. You could also get it on pretty much any of the other streaming services, Apple TV, Amazon, all of that. It's all available there. So it gave us an opportunity to do something that was very different and introduce our characters and our the process of making the show to a whole different audience. There's a lot of people out there like I have absolutely no interest in catching crab in the Bering Strait, but I'll still watch that show that's about catching crab in the Bering Strait. I'm definitely gonna watch Deadliest Catch, and that's probably an old reference. I probably should pick a new reality show. I don't even know if they make it anymore, but I think it's a good example of like, there are plenty of people out there that like I have no interest in professional wrestling, but if they're watching a reality show about making professional wrestling, it opens a whole new door.
Well, like it's like Survivor. When you bring up Survivor, it's like Survivor 30 or 50, whatever number it is, they're
Oh
still
yeah,
going.
oh yeah.
So, what advice would you give someone that's trying to break into the industry? That's one of the things.
Uh, Work hard, treat people fairly, and earn respect. I didn't come up with that. That's something that Adam Pierce posts a lot. Adam Pierce, who y'all probably know as the general manager for SmackDown. But before then, he was NWA World Heavyweight Champion for a long time. And I remember calling those matches down in Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, back when he was having wars with Colt Cabana and stuff. But those three phrases there, work hard, treat people fairly, earn respect, is pretty much it. And, I've had a lot of people, reach out and like, I want to be a part of the NWA. I have no experience in wrestling. What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? And the key is just one, you have to don't don't make it too hard on yourself to get your foot in the industry. And by that I mean like, there's some people that think, oh, I can only do it if I travel all the way over here and I get involved in that. That might be the best thing, but find your local independent professional wrestling company. I guarantee you have one, especially in Texas. There's so many. So if they're watching here in San Antonio, they should really, research Dog Pound Championship Wrestling. If they're up in Dallas, they should look at TSW and go there and volunteer your time, learn, try to do something. Whether it's, hey, I'm just here, I want to be a part of this. Where can I help you? Can I pick up water at the store for you? Can I pick up a wrestler at the airport and bring them here? Can I help you with the merch stand? If you have a different skill set that could possibly be used in one of the many things that you need to do in pro wrestling, maybe you could offer that. There's a lot of people out there that have fantastic Photoshop skills and they can make graphics. If you go to any promoter up there and be like, "Hey, I'll make you graphics for free. I just want to learn. I want to be a part of it. Let me show you what I can do for you." If it's successful and what you're making is good, eventually you'll start making money doing that and you'll become an integral part of whatever that organization is. And then you can continue to move on to different organizations, or you could build up that organization that you're already a part of. And that way you're a part of pro wrestling. That's sort of the secret to the success. And it's wrestling is a kind of a weird thing because you can't do that in really with other sports. I can't just go to Dodger Stadium as a guy from Los Angeles. That's what I'll go for. I'll go to Dodger Stadium and be like, I want to work here for free. What can I do? And it doesn't probably won't lead to you eventually being in the office with the Dodgers. But in pro wrestling, that's kind of how it is. You have to just kind of start at this bottom level and work your way up. And if your goal is to be a broadcaster like I am, or, things like that, well, come up with a professional character and maybe you could start doing interviews with some, companies and stuff. Just do some stuff in the back. Bring your own stuff. Like the technology is so affordable nowadays. Like just think of it the way we're doing. We're having the Zoom, in order to have this podcast. You could take an iPhone and a decent road mic and do interviews, and it sounds good and it looks professional. And you could be added into a broadcast or be part of the social media that's there. And so it's just about going out and doing the work, getting the hustle. Like, Javier, you emailed me and you asked, can I be on this thing? It's having that level of hustle of just like, hey, here I am. I'm not gonna make any money doing this, but I want to do this. I think it's an important part of, my life. I love this business. I love this sport, and just kind of surrendering yourself to it. And you can eventually work your way to be successful. And it might take a little bit of luck. It might take a lot of time. Like I said, I started in pro wrestling in 2011. It took me a long time to get to a point where I was making anywhere near, you know, enough money to support myself and my family. So you just have to, surrender to that grind and, keep working hard, and eventually the right opportunities could present themselves.
And did you have anything else before we leave off?
Well, like I said, we're here on planet Texas because Texas basically is the whole planet. Come on now. We don't need the rest of it. Texas is fine. We don't need any more. But anybody who's interested in the NWA, especially if you are in the Lone Star State, we are having NWA Shockwave. It's one of our signature live events, January 11th, Forney, Texas, which is just outside of Dallas. So if you go to nwaliveevents.com, tickets are available there. They're very affordable. We try to do a nice, affordable ticket price so that people can bring their families. We strive on being a family-friendly professional wrestling company. And there's plenty out there that aren't, and they do some wacky, crazy stuff with light tubes and whatnot. And that's all fine, but that's not what we do. We want to make sure that we're making, we're presenting a good television product that, any age could watch. And we're also having a good show that any age could enjoy in person as well. So grab the kids, come on down. The OC Theater is a great venue. To every seat's a good seat, but also it's attached to the Forney ISD, like their what do you call it? Vocational schools. And so there's restaurants there and all kinds of other stuff you could do while you're there as well too. So and of course you can always watch NWA Power on X. It's our latest episode's always pinned as the top tweet. If you still call it a tweet, I guess it's a post. And you can go there and catch up with all the great things that are happening there. And yeah, so that's sort of my spiel. Is I hope that your viewers and your listeners give the NWA a shot, and they watch every Tuesday at 5:05 Central Time, 6:05 Eastern, and just enjoy the show. And if they are anywhere in the Texas area, you could support the NWA at Shockwave on January 11th, or you could go to Dog Pound Championship Wrestling, or even TSW, who also runs out of Forney as well. So lots of opportunities to see our talent and enjoy yourselves.
Thank you. And if you want, I requested time off so I could go up there for January 11th. Yeah.
Hell yeah. Come
Come
on
see
up.
about the coworkers,
Bring
but
them
we'll
up.
see. But yes, thank you so much. And oh man, I can't thank you so much.
No, my pleasure.
Yes, sir.